The form of a tool watch follows its function. While it can also be a luxury item, its primary purpose is practical utility, not just keeping time. This is the Breitling Navitimer 43, a watch that fits the very definition of a tool watch. Well, nearly. In today's video, we're going to dive into the Navitimer 43, the design, the movement, the legacy, and most importantly, how it actually feels to wear one. So, buckle up. This is going to be a good flight. To understand the Navitimer, we need to go back, way back to the early 1950s. At that time, wristwatches weren't just accessories, they were essential tools for professionals. Breitling, founded in 1884, had already established itself as a leader in chronographs. But in 1952, they introduced something revolutionary, a watch designed specifically for pilots. The Navitimer, short for navigation timer, featured an integrated circular slide rule on the bezel, allowing pilots to calculate critical flight data, fuel consumption, airspeed, rate of climb, and even currency conversion. It wasn't just a watch, it was a wrist-worn flight computer. This caught the attention of the Aircraft Owners and Pilot Association, or IOPA, and soon the Navitimer became their official watch. It was a tool trusted by aviators at a time when aviation was romantic, dangerous, and full of adventure. Over the decades, the Navitimer became more than a pilot's tool. It became a cultural icon. Astronaut Scott Carpenter even wore a modified Navitimer in space in 1962 known as the Cosmonaut, dubbed as the first Swiss wristwatch in space. Legends like Miles Davis and Sergei Gainsbourg wore it on their wrists, and today it stands as one of the longest continuously produced chronographs in the world. So when you strap on a Navitimer, you're not just wearing a watch, you're wearing a piece of history. Let's talk about what makes the Navitimer a Navitimer. The first thing that hits you is that dial. It's busy, unapologetically so. This isn't minimalism. This is function-first design, wrapped in timeless elegance. You either like it or hate it. When I first encountered the Navitimer, it wasn't something I could accustom to, but like in all romantic love story, it grew on me. The Navitimer 43 features a stainless steel case measuring, you guessed it, 43mm in diameter. But it's important to note the watch wears a bit smaller than the number suggests, thanks to its thin bezel and curved lugs. The lug to lug is around 48.5mm and the thickness is about 13.6mm, which is quite manageable for a chronograph. The side profile of the watch are all brushed, making it less delicate compared to a polished side. However, to maintain its elegance, the bevels and the lugs are polished, making it pleasing to the eyes whenever one looks at it. Up top, you get a domed sapphire crystal with AR coating on both sides, which gives that beautiful distortion at the edges, something collectors absolutely love. The top crystal encompasses the slide rule bezel, and the slide rule bezel is bidirectional and beautifully engineered. It's not just aesthetic, it's tactile. Rotating it gives you this subtle rubbery resistance that makes the experience feel intentional and precise. The dial itself is a marvel of layering. The main dial is available in several colors: black, silver, ice blue, copper. But the model I have here is the Singapore Flagship Edition, which is limited to 60 pieces only. This retro-inspired timepiece has an exclusive brown and bronze or beige dial that augments a vintage charm. Featuring a deep brown dial that has a sunburst brush surface, the bronze or beige subdials are stepped down with a slight amphitheater drop, with bar markers painted on, before reaching the circular motifs with numerous markers painted on. The 3 registers at the 3, 6 and 9 give it that classic tri-compacts layout, balanced and symmetrical. The applied hour markers are chamfered and polished, and the hour and minute hands are also polished, give the watch a touch of refinement. Lume is present, though modest. After all, this isn't a diver. The hands on the subdials are all lacquered black. The pop of red on some of the numerous pointers and chrono second hand makes reading the chronograph and the slide rule easy peasy. It also gives a hint of playfulness to the watch. Not too much, but just enough to still make this a dress watch. The date is at the 6 o'clock in between the subdial. It is clearly visible as the opening is pretty big and it has a white backdrop with black numerals. Around the outer edge sits the legendary circular slide rule featuring the same color on the subdial, giving it consistency and a soft reserve approach on its color scheme. The slide rule is the defining feature of the Navitimer. Yes, you can actually use it to make real calculations, but let's be honest, most owners won't. Still, it's an icon of design, and a love letter to an era when pilots didn't rely on digital instruments. And here's how it looks on the wrist. I have a 16cm wrist, and the 43 fits surprisingly well. The curved lugs help it hug the wrist, and despite the larger diameter, it doesn't feel overwhelming. If you're used to modern sport watches, this will feel right at home. Inside the Navitimer 43 beats Breitling in-house caliber B01, a movement that's genuinely impressive. The B01 is a column wheel vertical clutch chronograph movement with a power reserve of about 70 hours. It beats at 28,800 vibration per hour and it's COSC certified for chronometer accuracy. The column wheel ensures a smooth, crisp pusher feel. Start, stop, and reset the chronograph and you'll notice the buttery action. This isn't a cheap cam-actuated chrono. This is premium watchmaking. The vertical clutch means there's no jump or stutter when the chronograph seconds hand starts. It glides into action cleanly. And because of this design, you can actually leave the chronograph running continuously without negatively impacting the movement. Flip the watch over and you're greeted by a sapphire case back that proudly displays the B01. Breitling doesn't go overboard with decorations. It's tasteful. Geneva stripes on the bridges, a sign rotor, polished bevels. Enough to appreciate the mechanics without screaming for attention. The B01 isn't just good for a Breitling movement, it's genuinely world class. It can go toe-to-toe with the likes of Omega coaxial chronos and Zenith L perregaux. And perhaps the best part, Breitling now backs this movement with an 8-year warranty. That says a lot. The Navitimer 43 is available on Serral strap configuration. You can go with a classic alligator leather strap or Breitling's polished stainless steel bracelet. This one is on leather, with a deployment clasp. The quality is excellent, supple, well stitched, and it molds to the wrist beautifully. The deployment clasp is signed, easy to adjust, and gives a very secure feel. On the wrist, the 43 strikes a sweet balance. It's not a featherweight, at around 96.58 grams on the strap and 75.9 grams without it. You know it's there, but it's comfortable, well balanced, and has excellent wrist presence without crossing into wrist clock territory. Of course, if you have smaller wrists, you might want to try the 41mm version. But personally, I think the 43 is the perfect middle ground. Large enough to showcase the slide rule and the dial complexity, but still wearable for most people. Functionally, the Navitimer is a pilot's chronograph at heart. You have the main timekeeping functions, hours, minutes, small seconds at 9 o'clock, and your chronograph seconds, minutes, and hours. The slide rule bezel, while intimidating at first, can actually be learned. It lets you do multiplication, division, unit conversion, and fill calculation. In the 1950s, this was revolutionary. Today, well, your phone can do it too, but it's still incredibly satisfying to know the watch can do it. I personally find it pretty useful when I travel. Instead of using my phone to determine how much it is in my home currency to purchase something at a foreign country, which might give the wrong image that I'm someone who can't afford or cheapskate. To save face, I just need to look at my Navitimer. For example, $1 is equivalent to 4 ringgit and 20 cents. The 10 on the dial represents 1 USD, hence on the numerals on the brown dial is now a representative of USD. Whereas the numbers on the bezel are now representative of Ringgit Malaysia. Hence, we align 42, assuming that it is 4.2, with the red 10, showing that 1 USD is equivalent to 4.2 Ringgit Malaysia. And you're all set. Now, assuming that you have spent 16 USD on a piece of clothing and you would like to know how much it is in Ringgit Malaysia, All you need to do is to look for the 16 on the brown dial and see the number corresponding it on the bezel. In this case, it's approximately 67 ringgit Malaysia. Now, assuming that you are planning to purchase a Breitling Top Time B01 Gino Patali, which is retailed at 8,050 USD, there is no 8,000, 800 or 80 numeral on the inner brown dial. Hence, we look for the first numeral on the 8,000, which is the 8. The corresponding number on the 8 is approximately 33. Since 8 equals 8,000, 33 will equate to 33,000. A Top Time B01 Gino Patali would therefore possibly retail at 33,000 ringgit Malaysia. Since the retail price in Malaysia is actually lower than that, I would suggest that you come to visit Malaysia and buy it instead. And I digress. Of course, the slide rule is not going to be as accurate as a calculator due to the limited numbers it has on the timepiece, but it gets the job done. The crown is nicely sized and easy to grip, making winding and setting the time a breeze. To adjust the date, you can either pull the crown to position 1 and quick set it. At position 2, the date doesn't tilt at all but snaps at 11:58 PM. The B01 has an added advantage as there is no danger zone when it comes to adjusting the date. You can even adjust it between 10 PM to 10 AM without the risk of breaking it. The chronograph pushers have that satisfying tactile feedback I mentioned earlier. The Navitimer isn't a dive watch, so water resistance is only 30 meters. Enough for splashes, but not for swimming. This is a watch made for the skies, not the sea. When it comes to pilot watches, the Navitimer sits in a very unique place. Compared to something like the IWC Big Pilot, the Navitimer is more technical, less about big, bold typography and more about complexity and calculation. Against the Omega Speedmaster, it has a richer aviation history, while the Speedy leans into space heritage. And if you compare it to the Zenith Chronomaster, it's less avant-garde, more classic 2 watch. The Navitimer has carved its own niche. It's a pilot chronograph that's simultaneously technical and elegant. You can wear it with a flight suit or a blazer, and it doesn't feel out of place in either scenario. Let's talk about price. The Breitling Navitimer 43 retails for around 10,000 USD, depending on the configuration. Because the one I have here is a limited edition, it's retailed as the price you see below. At this price point, you're competing with heavy hitters, but the Navitimer holds its ground, and here's why. You're getting an in-house chronograph movement with proven reliability, a design that is instantly recognizable, a heritage few other brands can match, and a watch that bridges the gap between 2 and dress chronograph seamlessly. If you're buying one of these, you're not just buying specs, you're buying legacy, and that's something numbers alone can't quantify. Watches comes and go, trends rise and fade, but the Navitimer, it endures. It remains remarkably consistent. Not because Breitling couldn't change it, but because they didn't need to. The Navitimer was right the first time. It's one of those rare watches where design, history and mechanics align perfectly. It's not perfect, it's not the most water resistant, and it's definitely not subtle, but it doesn't have to be. Because when you look down at your wrist and see that dial, that slide rule, those gleaming hands, you know exactly what you're wearing. And that, my friend, is what makes a Navitimer timeless. So that's the Breitling Navitimer 43. Let me know in the comments, is this a grail watch for you? Or are you more a Speedy or IWC person? Either way, it's hard to deny that this piece is a true icon. If you enjoyed this review, hit that like button, subscribe and hit that bell icon for more watch content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care now, bye bye now.